What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the same. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. And I'm here with Allie LeFevere of Obedient Agency, and I'm going to formally introduce Allie in a second. Allie, I always like to mention other episodes people should check out of the podcast. And since we're going to talk about, you don't want brands to be a snooze fest, you want them to stick out. Some of the ones I've had on maybe could use your services. Who knows? We had RX Bar on the podcast. We had Jimmy Bar on the podcast. We had Quest Nutrition on the podcast. Some interesting brands. We had Big League Chew. So check out all of those. They're really interesting, and they talk about the journey and not just the good times, like we've heard them, being successful, but some of the tough times as well. So check those out. And this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. And at Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships. And how do we do that? We help you run your podcast. For me, Allie, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I've found no better way to do that over the past decade, to have the people and the companies I admire and have them on my podcast and share with the world what they're working on and what they're doing. So if you've thought about podcasting, Allie has several podcasts actually, which we'll talk about. You should. If you have a business, you should have a podcast, period. So if you have questions, go to rise25.com. You can ask us any questions that you want. We're happy to answer them. So I am excited to introduce Allie LeFevere. She's spent the last decade working with brands to make sure their messaging, like a message, is not a snooze fest. So if that's you, contact them. She is the co-founder of Obedient Agency. They are a humor branding agency and believe that standing out is not a matter of taste. It's a matter of survival, right? How do you stick out amongst all these? When I think about it, Allie, I think I've had 12 different bar companies on, right? Mm-hmm. They have to stand out. They have to have a niche. So they help launch brands and campaigns that hook consumers and customers in, keep them coming back. They do things like business naming, product naming, tagline, web copy, and so much more. They have been published in Adweek, the New York Times, Vice, Vogue, Esquire, and a lot more. And they work with tons of brands, including Blue Bunny, Native, Hilton, Choice Organics, Cliff Bar, even the LA Rams and the Dallas Cowboys. So Allie, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Gosh, wow. Just impressed me with my own bio. No,
that's right. I mean, and like this, your background comes from, you were VP of engagement in a Chicago-based startup. And also you ran some first business developing creative programs for Dell, AT&T, Trunk Club. I just want to start there for a second. Like, what did you learn in the startup world? And then with some of these big companies that now you take into Obedient?
Yeah, well, I think there are so many lessons in the startup world. I could probably do like a 10-hour podcast with you on that, the good, the bad, the ugly. But I think that in terms of what I do now, I think the biggest thing is that when you are a startup and you're entering a space for the first time, you really have to make a mark. Oftentimes you are either entering an industry as a groundbreaker. So people aren't familiar with who you are, and you have to make your case absolutely clear and get people excited about what you do and what you are and the value you bring and the benefit you bring to the industry, and help people understand kind of why you exist. Or you're entering a really saturated market. And so you have to find some way to differentiate yourself and make yourself a unique, distinct, original voice in the industry and say something people want to hear and connect and relate to your audience. And so yeah, it's really, like you said in our bio, like standing out isn't just a matter of taste. It really is a matter of like, how do you survive as an entrepreneur? You have to build a really unique, cohesive, memorable brand that people fall in love with for the long haul. So yeah, it was very cool to start in that space and then be able to work the way I do now and actually get my hands very deep in all the creative. So yeah, it's great.
I want to dig into how you brand that, your show, and people can check it out. And I want to give a shout out to Annie Warshaw of Mission Propel. I said, who are some amazing agency owners doing cool stuff? And Annie was like, you have to talk to Allie. And so I'd love for you to talk about some of your favorite episodes of how you brand that.
Yeah. Well, first off, Hi, Annie. I love you. We have to catch up soon. Yeah. So it is. So it's called Can They Brand That? And it's pretty fun. So kind of the whole premise is me and my business partner, Lindsay, we pick a brand that we've never worked with before. We've done really no research on other than just being familiar with who they are and what they do. We set a timer for 20 minutes, throw on our video cameras, and we brainstorm as many creative ideas and campaigns and slogans as we can. And then we distill it down to like a 3.5-minute video and share it. And so it's really fun because I think what it shows is that the power of a brainstorm and how you have to start sometimes with really bad ideas and you have to get all of your ideas out on the table in order to go not just from A to B idea, but like A to B to C to D. And so we have such a foundation of trust and respect and play in our relationship, which I think allows us to just go wild and not hold anything back. And so it's just been really fun for us, and it's led to some great client partnerships and opportunities. But some of my personal favorite, we have done one for Native, which was we actually landed them as a client because of our Can They Brand That? And that was just awesome for them to see 3.5 minutes of us riffing and to trust that we could be brought on as a long-term partner. And we've just had a very successful relationship since, but I think they really saw just the fun and play of our creative ideas and, we were able to form a relationship from there. We've done a really fun one, Tushy, which is a bidet company, Casper mattress, that was a really fun one. We actually have one that's coming out soon where the brand is Lowe's, the home improvement store, but we decide instead of branding Lowe's, we decide to develop a mascot for them. So in 20 minutes, we riff a bunch of fun mascot ideas and give them backstories and character arcs and names. And we did a one where we branded the public library. So that was fun because that's just like a public service that so many people leverage and have since they were young. How can we ideate on behalf of them? And we actually had Chicago.
Allie, stick on the Lowe's for a second. What were some of the mascot ideas that came out?
Oh gosh. So one that is a really fun one was a wrench. And the idea is that the character was a foil. And so that they would throw wrenches in your home improvement projects. And so that was we built like a backstory for that character. And again, we are doing it really fast. So, if we spent time working on it, it would be much more robust. So that was probably one of my favorite ones. We had a whole set of tools family. We had a screw that was kind of a screwball and was kind of throwing zany ideas out and kind of coaxing you to DIY your projects. There was just a lot of very silly ideas that we were kind of riffing really fast. But the wrench one was probably my favorite. I could really see that one come to life in a way that I think would be useful because it was really fun because it led back to such a great benefit is, because all projects end up, there's a wrench in the projects in some way or another. So Lowe's is your solution. So that was fun.
What I love about what you're talking about is you add value first, right? And so when we are helping build our podcast, we say that exactly what you're doing, which is the companies that you'd love to work with, add value to them and, give them free advice, give them free marketing, give them free whatever. And they could also understand what you do and how you work. And also similar companies, you may not end up working with those companies, but I know similar companies have seen your videos too and go, oh, I like how you think. And they called you as well.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in that. And that's just really our ethos as an agency. Give before you take. It's also why, we've rooted one of the reasons we've rooted our agency in humor is inherently a give before it's a take. You give someone a positive feeling, a positive experience, a laugh, a joyful moment, a moment of delight or surprise or excitement or entertainment before you ask them to buy anything from you. And so you're already depositing into that relationship bank account before you extract from it. And so that's why we just think it's just the most valuable approach to marketing and branding, because it's one of the only ones that makes you feel good and inherently is a value add for your consumer. So yeah, so that's kind of the whole premise of why we started Obedient.
Let's talk about native for a second and talk about the video that you created. Can they brand that? And then what you do with native?
Yeah. So when we created the video for native, it was very silly, off the wall brainstorm. I mean, we were brainstorming fake spokespeople like Brad Pitt because of pits, and we were just it was a very loosey-goosey, very silly. There were some really fun ideas in there too that we've actually used for native, weirdly enough. One idea was practice safe sweats, and they used that for their Valentine campaign, which is kind of funny.
For people who know what native is, it's a deodorant company.
Yeah. So they started out as a clean deodorant company. They have now expanded into body wash, skincare, sun care, hair care, the whole gamut. They're incredible. They're a really high quality company, and they're really effective too. So, I've used clean deodorant for a very long time. And I would say they're probably one of the only ones that is really effective. If you're someone that is an athlete or you need strong deodorant, they actually do the job too, which is cool. But we have done so much work for them. So we have done everything from kind of the foundational, like reconceptualizing the entire voice of their brand, to internal brand guidelines, their tagline, which they'll use kind of across their company, to web copy, to a launch of all their various new product lines that are coming out. We did an ad in the New York Times for them when it was a satirical ad where we were kind of unlaunching one of their products in anticipation of a new product launch that was coming out. We've done
what's an unlaunch?
Releases.
What's an unlaunch?
So they had a popular novelty scent it was pumpkin spice latte. So they came to us and they just wanted to do something with this scent and not bring it back. And kind of their initial idea was canceling it. And we steered them away from that and said, the word cancel is very loaded, and you can get into some hot water with that. And they didn't, they hadn't thought it through yet. So we basically came up with a whole idea that let's retire the scent, but we're going to retire it with a Comedy Central style roast. And so we wrote roast jokes, roasting the old scent as if it was a person. We personified it. And then we also created roast jokes. It sounds complicated, but when you saw it in person, it was very fun.
I could totally picture it because, I watch those roasts on YouTube all the time.
Yeah.
So they have the celebrity and, they get a bunch of other celebrities and comedians and they just lay into them. So,
yeah. So then there was 4 new scents that were rolling out to replace pumpkin spice latte. And we created roast jokes from those scents as if they were roasting the pumpkin spice latte. So like one of the new scents was Earl Grey tea. And so one of the jokes was like, pumpkin spice latte isn't even of noble birth. Like there was just like a lot of funny ribs. But I mean, there was a lot more we did with the campaign. Like I said, we did the New York Times ad, and we did some really funny press releases that got picked up across a myriad of publications, and Ad Week being one of them. But yeah, basically we were unlaunching the scent so we could build buzz for the new product line that was coming out.
So the roast, I want to watch it. Is there a video out on this roast, or how did that take place? It
wasn't a video. It was all like static ads, but yeah, there was ads that was on their website. There was, social ads and other digital mediums. And it was a hoot.
All right.
It was so fun. It was just, we just got to play and come up with the zaniest ideas, which it was very fun. I mean, very funny.
The tagline. So what you talked about the Valentine's Day one. What was that again? And then you said there was another tagline from Native.
Oh yeah. So, we had ideated during our Can They Brand That, just the phrase practice safe sweats. And so they ended up leveraging it for their Valentine campaign, which ended up being really fun. So there's a little innuendo there, but Native is a pretty PG company for the most part. They're owned by Procter & Gamble. So they're not super explicit, but it was just enough, I think, for Valentine's Day. It was fun. We've been working, we wrote their new tagline. So their original tagline was kind of a standard formula that there was kind of a period of time where brands would pick 3 words and they would go, it'd be X, Y, Z, and that would be like their tagline. So theirs was simple, safe, effective. And they wanted to kind of stay in the realm of that, sort of. So we had an idea to take the phrase good, clean, fun and change some of the punctuation. So it almost became like good, comma, clean, comma, fun. Because that was much more reflective of the brand, and also kind of kept that similar formula, but giving it like a bit of a refresh and also a play on a common phrase that you've heard before. And so, yeah. And it would also express the benefits of the brand. So that's the newer tagline for Native, which is
sometimes when you're starting with their tagline or a blank slate, it's difficult, right?
Yeah.
And I'd love for you to chat about the method, right? And you have kind of this trademark brand personality method. Can you walk through just a couple of the things that when you think about creating a tagline or a name, how do you process this? Because, people think, oh, we just riff in a room, but you actually have a methodology that you take these companies through.
We do. Yeah. We have a very, for as playful and creative as we pride ourselves to be as an agency, we're highly systematized and operational as well. And so, okay, let me talk you through maybe more tagline, because how we would, if we were working with a company and just tip to tail rebranding, there's just such a more robust process. But ultimately, if I kind of distill it down to kind of some of the basic points, we are trying to so we have a big, robust intake process, and ask a very long series of questions that we end up discussing in great length on a project discovery call. But what we care very much about is audience psyche. So we care about the emotional state of your audience. How do they want to feel? What emotions what emotions do we want to elicit in your audience? And so we're really trying to understand what makes your audience tick. Like what are they going to care about? Because when we're developing a brand voice and a brand personality, as a whole, we have to tailor that so that it is effective to your target demographic. Ultimately, it's not what we think is funny. My personal style might be very different than if we were hired on a brand. So we are trying to, I'll try to use some non-cliche words, but we really want to differentiate your message and differentiate your tone. Like, how do we create something that doesn't exist or you haven't heard before, at a minimum, haven't heard in your industry? We want to understand, what is your core position? Like, what is the thing that you hang your hat on? What's the thing that you do different, better, more interesting, more engaging than anyone else in your space? And then what, characteristics does your brand reflect and represent? What emotions do we want to elicit from your audience? So then that indicates what humorous tones and tactics we have to apply to your brand voice in order to draw out those emotions and that response and activate your consumers in a meaningful way. And so all of that is a really robust process before we even write a single word. So then once we have that that foundation laid, that's when we start to then go, okay, let's say the tone of voice is a bit more dry and straightforward and deadpan or self-deprecating. Then you take these core ideas that we've kind of mapped out and how do we write that in a way that's reflective of the tone we've aligned with? And so, yeah, it's not just throwing jokes at the wall. By no means would I say it's anywhere near that. It's much more, it's much more systematized and strategic, and it's, and cohesive. That's another big part is we don't want it to seem chaotic. So we want everything to feel very much aligned.
As an example, I was looking at your site and I love how you name your navigation, trophy case. But when I think of boring professions, okay, and I'm like, well, what did they do at this, right? And you said the tone and the humor, and one of them sticks out is a law firm, right? Yeah. So you have on there Inkowski Law, So how do you make that humorous? When I guess stereotypically, I guess maybe I'm wrong, but I don't, that seems like it would be a tough one.
Well, it was fun. It's actually a really fun project we did because she was really game to break form. Well, here's the thing too. It's like you take a boring industry and it's actually weirdly a lot easier to brand because no one else is funny in the space. So it's not a saturated market. So you really just have to figure out, okay, how do we still balance professionalism and then say something in a really dynamic, entertaining way. So for example, she's still launching some of the elements of the brand, but if I remember correctly, I think the headline on her homepage is, I think it's IP law is the jungle, we Tarzan. It's something like that. I could be off a couple words, but that is the premise of it. So like so basically the idea is like, this is a really complicated space and we're the best at it. Right. And then you say it in a way that is really surprising. And so, it was a really fun project because A, someone's game, B, the industry is a snooze fest, and C, there's just a whole sandbox to play in and you can take it in a million directions. You just have to keep in mind who the audience is because, you have to be mindful of how hard in the paint you go. But yeah, that's one of the lines I remember.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned before we hit record TNN.
Yeah.
And you said a couple times, which I love when you stated just understanding the psyche of the audience. Mm-hmm. And for this particular case, what was your process for starting to understand the psyche of the audience? Because it seems like, again, very diverse, very complicated.
Yeah. So TNN stands for the new normal. The new normal was actually a whole arm of the University of Chicago that was developed before COVID. So even though that's a phrase you hear a lot now, it was not at the time. And essentially what it was is they wanted to, it's actually been they partner with the National Health Institute as well, because it's rolled out across a bunch of different universities. But the new normal, the whole goal of the new normal is to get people excited about participating in health research. So helping them understand what it is, how they can effectively participate, and why it's so meaningful. That is, it is a world that we did not realize was so tenuous until we got in there. People are very scared of health research. They don't understand what it means. It's been very predatory to a lot of specifically demographics. Women and people of color, people of lower income there's a lot of horror stories that in the not too recent past where it is very much jaded people rightfully so, from participating. But health research is such a big umbrella, and there's so many ways to participate that aren't invasive, that are maybe qualitative research, that are so beneficial to the community. And so our task was, okay, we'll make it exciting and engaging to the community, not just the people who are healthy and want to participate, but also the people that are experiencing some of these illnesses that would really benefit from the research. So, you have to be relatable, and you have to be welcoming, and you have to be warm, and you have to be inviting, and all these things, but you also have to be delightful and engaging and surprising. And so we actually created multiple brand voices because we wanted to speak to multiple demographics and we wanted to see what resonated. So we started out initially with some broader campaign headlines and concepts, where we tested out a few different tones of voices and to see what landed. But yeah, that was we spent a lot of time working with our contacts there to understand, like, who are we trying to attract? What are their concerns? What are their fears? What do they need to hear? What keeps them up at night? What would make them really excited and engaged? So we just had to get into that, the mindset of the individuals we were talking to, so that we could start to really develop voices that spoke to them. And so, we ran a bunch of campaigns, especially around the city of Chicago. And it was funny that all the campaigns performed pretty equally, but spoke to very different demographics. So it actually worked out exactly how we had hoped, is that we created a myriad of voices and approaches, and they all resonated with different people. So that's the truth of when you you take, you cultivate a brand personality or a brand voice, and you have a very distinct message, it's not going to necessarily be palatable and universal. So you have to really tailor it accordingly. So it's probably one of the projects I'm most proud of, just because it was so challenging, and it was so well received by the community. And also, I think most importantly, the people kind of within these health research studies who could really benefit from people participating. So we heard from kids and families, and cried a million times when we get all the feedback, just because it's this world that they live in, and they need people to care, and they need people to participate. And so, I think we were able to really effectively make it an entertaining campaigns, and also humanize it and make it very respectful of what people were going through. So yeah, humor is so nuanced. And I think that that's the power of it, is like humor is such a broad category that people think it's just like LOL jokes. And there's just so much more to it than that. So yeah, that was a special one.
So Allie, without violating HIPAA, what was an example of a story that was emotional that came in?
Yeah, I mean, we had a couple. So there was, when they would do some internal testing, there were some families where the children had cancer. And so they were actively involved in various research studies through University of Chicago and University of Michigan as well. And they were asked to kind of respond to these campaigns. And overwhelmingly, the response was that they felt heard, and they felt seen, and they felt proud that that people would see health research talked about in this way, and that it would be hopefully something that invited them into the process. I mean, I wish I could remember quotes.
What was the messaging like for those campaigns? Like, what were they seeing or presented which kind of goes into when you were talking, I'm curious, how do you test it? Right. And so what are they presented with that they can then respond to?
So sometimes they're presented with like ad campaigns. So sometimes they see like a headline and like a sub headline and kind of the core message there. They might test some slogans or kind of brand one-liners to that kind of synthesize the campaign. Web copy, we did some A/B testing on web copy. So there's a lot of different ways to kind of play and figure out how to move in the right direction. So I'm trying to remember. Oh, I feel like I'm having a brain dead moment.
There was probably so many.
There's so many
voices.
that.
Were there any brand voices that stuck out? And just so I'm trying to visualize what were you saying?
Okay, so one I can think of is this is a pretty straightforward one, is human health needs human help. So that's one. That was, I think, a much more straightforward tone of voice. So that was one line. That's one line I can think of that kind of we wanted to test out to see what's a really human, approachable way we can talk about it. That's one line I remember. We did a campaign where we likened participating in health research and getting matched for studies to like a dating site. So then there was copy that was things like, let us set you up with this cute research study we know, friends with health research benefits. Like, I'm trying to think of some of that, but they had like beautiful imagery with them and some fun illustrations. There was a whole campaign we did likening participating in health research to having like a hobby. Because you can really participate in your spare time. So we did this funny campaign where we kind of brought up these really offbeat hobbies, like extreme ironing is an actual real hobby. And it's basically like, it's extreme ironing is a thing. Like so could health research be, it was kind of, I can't remember the exact lines, but there is a lot of funny hobbies that exist. And we kind of pulled those into some fun campaign ideas, which it really resonates with, certain demographics. So, those are like, I'm like pulling out from the deepest parts of my brain right now. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah. I want to hear some of your favorite product names that you've come up with. I imagine there's some fun ones that you've come up with. And And right before we hit record, we were talking about one of your videos that you did about Tushy. And I think you came up, I don't know if this is one of their taglines or not, but I think you came up with their new tagline when we were talking. And I can't remember what you said, but something like, if you're not using it, it's barbaric. Well, what did you say? How did you describe the Tushy? And for people who don't know what it is, it's a bidet you put on your toilet? Or
it's a bidet attachment. Yeah. I mean, that was just my personal take on it.
What did you say? I forgot.
I said, if you're still using toilet paper, that's just barbaric. If you're only using toilet paper to clean your rear. And Tushy was a kind of brand that we did. We had a friend that worked at Tushy and helped with some of the initial branding, and she's a hoot. So we did, I think it was our very first kind of brand that we did it on with Tushy, and we didn't end up working with them, but we actually did talk to the owner several times, and great guy, and loved what we created. They already had a team in place, but that was really fun. We came up with a lot of silly ideas there. But yeah, I'm a personal advocate of getting a bidet attachment for your toilet. It's, once you use it, you'll never go back.
I mean, I don't know if that is on their website, but I think you should sell that tagline back to them.
No, it is.
When you said that, I'm like, oh my, I better go buy one. That's crazy.
I mean, I would, it'll be the best $100 you spend your entire life. We have them
one
at
of
every
my best
toilet
purchases, which my business partner makes fun of me. I forgot what it was for an anniversary or something, but I asked my wife to get me a squatty potty as a gift. And that's also like
game changer.
And a game changer. Yeah, exactly. So now I need to go check out Tushy.
I highly recommend.
My next anniversary gift right there.
It is, they're not our clients, so I'm not getting kickbacks for this, but I mean, I highly, highly, highly would recommend buying one.
So product names that you're especially proud of or that are fun.
Yeah. Well, here's the funny thing about naming is our favorite names rarely get picked. Naming is weirdly the most personal thing we create. It is people just like what they like. They want what they want. And like, we're proud of all the ideas we present, but like if I gave you our favorite,
we'll call it the lost names then. It's ones that they didn't have to use. Maybe they didn't use, but you remember and you're like, oh, they should have picked this.
Oh my God. I'm trying to remember. Hold on. We had a really, okay. So here's one. Okay. So we were naming an ice cream brand, and the name they picked, we actually like. The name is Hijinks. So that's a fun brand product we named. But one of the other ideas we had that we really liked, because we had an entire story around it, was okay, let me explain the product a little bit better. It was a DIY. It was an ice cream base that you added ingredients to, and you can make your own ice cream. So you essentially created your own ice cream flavor. So it was very interactive. It was very great for groups and parties and things like that. So it wasn't just like you go to a store and buy a tub of ice cream. So that's the whole premise of Hijinks. But one of our ideas that we really liked is, I wish I could remember all the taglines that we came up with. But the name of the ice cream was Fiction Ice Cream, because the whole idea is that like you could create your own stories. And Jeremy, I wish I had this in my head right now, because the taglines were just some of the best we've ever written. But the whole idea was like creating your own story. And we had this incredible backstory, and the taglines were awesome, and they were funny, and they were memorable. And we started writing some other fun copy around it. And this, our client just preferred Hijinks, which we also like too. It has like some really strong letters in there that are really memorable, and X, and those are really dynamic, and they kind of lock into your brain. But that's one I remember. I'm trying to remember one of we named a private eye firm. And I'm trying to remember some of the reject ideas, like, oh my gosh, Jim, I can't think, but there's so much fun wordplay.
Where do those go? Like when you present it to them, is it in like a PDF document, or is it just back and forth with them? Either maybe a Zoom whiteboard or something. How do you present here's the 10 names, or is it a brainstorming session? How does that work where they're like, oh yeah, we want this one?
Oh, no. Yeah, no, we don't do a live brainstorm or anything. We definitely conceptualize everything and we present it. So we build our entire case for it. So present them in a deck all individually, with a case of why we think this is strong, and based on the audience or based on what they were looking for, why we think we could really build this out and do a dynamic brand. So we usually present 4 at a time. So we'll do 4 and then we'll do another 4. When people get, the more names people get is not better. People generally always like a name from the first round. I think they just want to see more. Everyone wants to see more, but we know some of our best ideas we want to present them out the gate. And we have great ideas in the second round too. It's more just like, you kind of know what the winners are, right, when you're presenting. But yeah, so we present them and then we'll get on a call and we'll do like a dive and help them understand our mindset or what we were thinking, or talk them through, because people get really nervous about making decisions. So I end up being a therapist a lot. Yeah, I mean,
it is a big decision, they're like, well, we're going to be putting this on 1 million containers of this product, right? And we have to do the packaging and all this. It's a big trickle effect.
And I think sometimes, maybe this isn't fully true, but a lot of times you get hired by people that maybe creative ideas aren't necessarily their specialty. And so they have sometimes a hard time seeing the vision. So that's why we end up taking so much time explaining why we did what we did and like what our vision is, because it's like you have to help them see what you see, because sometimes they can't really see it. So yeah, I guess it's good. I'm a pretty enthusiastic person, so I try to like get people energized and excited when they're about to, we're about to walk them through something. But yeah, I would say that we just have 1 million ideas that have been on the cutting room floor, but then they end up in our back pocket and we have them to kind of reuse again in some capacity if we ever need to. I mean, we've named 1 million things. And so some of those ideas, they cycle back and they end up for another product. So that's been good.
You worked with a number of ice cream brands, including Blue Bunny. What did you do with Blue Bunny?
So the project we just finished with them is they're rolling out a new ice cream platform, which is a mini product. So naming the new product, but we had pretty strict parameters because it had to fall in line with the line that already existed. But where we really could play is all the packaging copy and all of the names of the flavors. We went pretty ham there. But the product name itself, it's still in testing, so I can't really share anything. But it had to fall in line with kind of what some of the things they already had. But what we did is we took when we presented ideas, we said, okay, if we want to stay in alignment with what's already there, here are some of our favorite ideas. And if we want to go rogue and we really want to get wild and creative, here's some of our ideas. And they really liked these ideas. But, when you're in a corporate product, you got to follow some rules. So we always present the things that we think are great. And at least because we want to show people that, like, even if we're boxed into certain parameters, we want to at least show you how, if we had our way, what we could do.
When you think, Allie, out there of the brands that are out there, what brands should be working with you that you respect, that they kind of fall in line with the work that you do? One that sticks out is like kind of like Snapple, where you twist off the cap and they kind of a fun, quirky. What are some of the brands out there that you like in that realm that should be like, hey, maybe we should check out Obedient?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit earlier, but I think ice cream brands they're just a lot of them are doing it really well. I mean, Ben and Jerry's is amazing. Halo Top is really fun as well. They have a similar under the cap experience, which is so delightful. They have a really nice social presence as well. There's some really good kind of up and coming brands that have a lot of personality and are very playful. Minor Figures, Magic Spoon. There's like these kind of, we love a brand with a mascot, and I just think that there's so much you could do in that space. Yeah, I mean, God, there's a million brands.
Any favorite brand mascots that you have?
I like Minor Figures are some of my favorites currently. They have a really quirky world of offbeat, just weirdos, and they're like cool too. So they
I've
have
not
some
seen it.
merch. It's Minor Figures is like a coffee brand.
Hmm.
Highly recommend just checking them out. They're really beautifully illustrated, but they're really fun and quirky. In terms of local, Real Good Juice is one of my favorite branded companies. They have, I don't know if I'd officially call them mascots, but they definitely have characters that are in all of their stores and on their website. And they have really fun product names. Like I drink a Punky Juicer, which is their matcha drink, every single day. So I'm gonna go in the hole
Exactly.
for how much
That
I've spent on it.
That stuff's
It's not,
cheap.
it's my splurge for sure. I mean, it's kind of absurd, but the price point, but it doesn't stop me. I love it. But they're great. They're just really fun, and even their in-store experience is a delight. So they're a hoot. One of my buddies is good friends with the owner, and we haven't done any work with them, but there's someone that I have all the respect for.
Yeah, we're both in Chicago. I don't know if they're only local, but I've had them before too. And the way I justify it, Allie, is, I'd rather spend the money now than, for my health than spend it later. It'll be way more expensive on the back end if I don't buy stuff like that. So
I agree. And I also support local, and I want to support a brand that's doing something different, and they're high quality. Their stuff's really good. Their food's good too. So yeah, good for them. Shout out to Real Good Juice.
That's right. First of all, thank you, Allie, for sharing your stories and your methodology. It's been fantastic. I have one last question before we end, and about lessons you've learned over the years from mentors. And I know, your father and grandfather were inspiration to you. I'd love any lessons that you learned from them, and then anyone else through your career.
Yeah, I would have to say like the first person. Well, I should say as a whole, my family is hilarious. They are just, I think, the funniest people on the planet. But, I'm obviously very biased, but I have a very funny, teasy, gregarious Italian family. And they are just, I think that I owe the way that they look at the world to how I approach it as well. And my career, for sure. Everything is fun and everything is funny when we're together. But I would say the thing that jumps out the most is my grandmother used to say, it's not a matter of can you do it, it's how can you do it. And I've always loved that because it makes me feel like the solution is always available. I just have to figure out how to get to it. And so it's always kept a door of possibility open that I can find an answer to anything I'm looking for. And it doesn't mean it's always internal. It means I can tap in the right people. I can ask the right questions, as I can defer to someone who's better than me. But that's one that I think is really guided just kind of the way I move through the world. My mom is a hoot. I mean, my family in general is just wonderful. So I'm about to see them tomorrow. So I'm super excited.
Thanks for sharing that. I love that. How can you do it? What about your business partner?
Oh, she's the best. We've been best friends for ever. We just get along famously. I think the thing I love the most about a relationship is that we have such a respect for each other's needs. We are very similar in a lot of ways, and then very different. I think the biggest difference between the two of us is if we're working on a project, for example, I am very achievement oriented. So I want to move to the next step. I want to figure out the next answer. I want to I want to find a solution. I want to feel like when I walk away that I have moved ahead in some meaningful way, which I think is really important. And then I think what she's so great at is she wants to exhaust creative ideas. And so then there's always space for that, is let's give it 5 more minutes and see if we could riff on this one piece for just a little longer. And so I think between the two of us, we just really respect each other's need not only to like play and create and ideate, but also do it very thoughtfully and intentionally and with a purpose. And it's, I think, just really effective. We've been running Obedient for 6 years and we just get along famously, which is, I think, pretty rare, for people who are running a business together. There's a lot of challenges with business ownership and kind of the day-to-day nuance and all that. But I think we picked the right people. So yeah, I love her. She's the best.
Allie, thank you. Everyone check out obedientagency.com. Are there any other places we should point people towards? I know people can check out the trophy case. They can check out the podcast and the shows. Are there any other places online we should point people?
I think that's the best home. You'll kind of get to everything through obedientagency.com. You can also check out our Instagram. That's where we post a lot of our brand that highlight reels. We have a YouTube page as well, so that you can find similar content there. But yeah, I think the website's a good starting spot.
Okay. Obedientagency.com. Thanks, Allie.
Thank you.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.